So this is the story of how 1 year ago today, I got my 15 minutes of YouTube fame, made it to Good Morning America, got the attention of Carly Rae Jepsen, and hopefully changed nothing in the process. I grew up in Las Vegas, and in 5th grade, I joined the Boy Scout troop charred at the neighborhood Lutheran church. I did all of the camping, climbing, hiking, and biking everyone expects scouts to do. And like every other scout, I attended summer camp. Summer camp is the 1 week a year where scouts travel to hang out with hundreds of other scouts and take classes in a host of outdoorsy topics. In 2002, I attended camp with my troop in this dusty valley east of San Diego, and I fell in love. There was something about the staff there that clicked with me, and by day 2 of camp, I knew I wanted to come back and work with them. So in 2003, my mom drove me all the way from Las Vegas down to San Diego and left me for 8 weeks to work at a Boy Scout camp. That first summer, I taught scouts how to tie knots and read maps, which is probably the most stereotypically scouting job I could ever have. I was the only one on staff there from Las Vegas, but the staff were incredibly helpful and immediately took me into their ranks. By the end of staff week, when I put on my first staff shirt, I knew I was home. Fast forward 10 years, and I've come a long way from teaching knot tying. In the summer of 2012, I ran our camp's ropes course, where I forced people to be friendly with each other and dangled them 40 feet in the air off telephone poles. The summer before that, I was program director, managing a staff of 50, keeping track of hundreds of scouts, and designing new and exciting programs to entertain 12-year-olds. The summer before that, I was dining hall steward, acting as the liaison between our kitchen staff and the scouts. I spent so many years at Boy Scout camp that I have a one-time at Boy Scout camp story for everything that happens in real life, and my friends up here get really annoyed whenever I start talking about it. For instance, buying a bag of marshmallows launches me into a story about the one time at camp where I got 300 kids to play Chubby Bunny at the same time because they had nothing else better to do. Mentioning a vacuum brings up the story of this one time where I brought my mom's vacuum to camp and then it mysteriously disappeared. Every time I eat a hamburger, I start into the story of the day that I figured out how to feed 400 people hamburgers in less than 20 minutes. So when I came out in 2007, I had to split my personality in half. I was gay Derek up here in Reno and Uber Scout Derek down in San Diego. Most people assumed I was straight because of the number of Boy Scout camp stories I told, and I never corrected them unless it was really important. Besides having to keep my Facebook profile orientation neutral, I never had to justify to myself the work I put into splitting my personality. Now, it is true that the Boy Scouts of America have had a long history of discrimination against avowed homosexuals. In 2000, the Supreme Court ruled that the Boy Scouts of America could set their own membership policies, regardless of how discriminatory they were. Many of you have seen the stories in the news of members like Jennifer Tyrell and Eric Andresen who made their exits from scouting in a public way, and I've talked to many other scouts who have left privately for the same reason. My whole outlook changed the summer of 2012 when I heard the story of Tim Griffin. Tim was a summer camp staffer in Northern California who has basically the same resume that I have. He had been program director at his camp, much like I had been, and he was back for one last summer, like I was that year. He was fired for being gay. When I heard that news, my bubble burst. I knew that I could no longer keep these two parts of my life separate. I had been offered the program director job for a third time in 2013, but last January I declined my favorite job in the world and made my video coming out as a gay camp staff and Eagle Scout. I made the video because I knew that I'd earned the respect of every staff member that I'd worked with at camp, and that they could not overlook this issue once they knew that I was gay. As one of my friends pointed out to me, many people in my generation aren't necessarily intolerant as much as they are ignorant. Most of the scouts I work with are still in high school and early college, and so they'd never met an out gay man who was comfortable with himself. Since coming out, they have all been supportive, and I still keep in contact with all of them. I never imagined the places my video would go after I posted it. Shortly after posting my video to YouTube 1 year ago today, one of my friends tweeted it to Dan Savage, who then retweeted it to all of his followers. Within 24 hours, the Huffington Post and the Advocate had picked up the story, and within a week, I was on Good Morning America and the New York Times website. Talk about waking up every morning to emails from my friends telling me where they found my video. In March, it was announced that Carly Rae Jepsen and Train would be the headlining act at this past summer's National Jamboree. Since both artists are already advocates for gay rights, Scouts for Equality and myself thought it would be a good idea to ask them to make their performance conditional on the Scouts' vote on this issue. So I started a petition on change.org and I worked with the staff there. 5 days later, when the petition had 63,000 signatures on it, both Carly Rae Jepsen and Train pulled out. Both of them also released statements advocating for equality in scouting. Now, the Boy Scouts have done their share of changing in that time as well. In May, they voted to allow gay scouts, but still ban gay adults like myself. Well, it's not a victory, it's a step in the right direction, and it gives me hope that scouting will remain a relevant organization far into the future. So I find myself now in this awkward position of both fighting and supporting the Boy Scouts of America. I still fully support the Boy Scouts program, and anyone who argues that the Boy Scouts is not relevant anymore should check out the new game design merit badge they released last year. But when I'm asked what advice I have for gay scouts, I'm always torn. I want to encourage scouts to come out and be who they are. But the best parts of my scouting career were spent as an adult on summer camp staff, which would be lost to any scout who comes out now. So in the end, what I really hope happens is absolutely nothing. I want the scouts to see that this change in policy does not at all affect the fantastic program that they offer. Scouts are still going to go camping and climbing and shooting and canoeing. Kids will still be taught to be good leaders and outstanding citizens. The only thing that changes is now a small group of kids will feel accepted and part of the group. Once Scouting sees that, I hope they understand that wherever a Scout falls in the spectrum of sexuality has no bearing on the type of Scout they will be. Thank you to everyone who's been supportive and shared my video over this past year. It's been an incredible year, and here's to another amazing year of fighting for equality in Scouting.